Hello, this is
Nice to
Tracy
be
Powell,
here.
founder of All Digitocracy and co-chair of the National Association of Black Journalists Digital Journalism Task Force. I'm here with three Nigerian journalists to talk about the ongoing crisis of the missing girls of Chibok, Nigeria. The first person I want to introduce to you is Benjamin Idopai, and he is a writer and former managing editor and columnist for the Vacaville Reporter in Vacaville, California, and the Dixon Tribune in Dixon, California, who now lives in Nigeria, and I believe he's from there. The next person I want to introduce is Dapo, and forgive me if I mispronounce this. I'll ask you to pronounce it again for me. Dapo Orlarunye, and he's the editor in chief of the Premium Times, and also the founder of the Wale Soniko Center for Investigative Reporting. And the last person I want to introduce you to is Nosa Igabor, managing editor of Tell Magazine. Thank you all for joining me.
Thank
It's a
you. It's a
great
pleasure.
pleasure to be here.
Great. Well, I know that you all are very busy, so I'm just going to jump in if you don't mind. And I'll direct questions to each of you, but if you want to, jump in and pitch in, if I don't direct the question to you, please feel free to do so. The very first question I want to ask is about the news that we just got here this morning, that the governor of Borno State says that there have been sightings of the missing girls, and I just wanted to get reaction from you all. First of all, I want to know if that's true, if that information is accurate, and then also get reaction from you and your thoughts on whether it's true or not. So I guess I'll start with
Uh,
Dapo.
what regarding information about the missing girls, I think, as a matter of fact, the, the authorities, either from Borno State or the federal authorities, have not been very forthcoming. To that extent, I don't think anybody is taking this new claim with any seriousness. Unconfirmed reports are not assuring us that what the governor is saying is correct. But this also speaks a little bit to the difficulty local media is having in covering this very difficult situation in itself. Um, I don't know whether NOSA has anything different from what I'm saying, and I think we can go into those other larger issues later. But regarding this very specific claim by the governor, we're still checking, but our own correspondent in Borno is saying that there's no reason to believe that this is the correct stuff.
No, sir.
Yeah,
What do you
that's what
no, sir, what do you think?
yeah, okay, well, I mean, Dakwa said it all, really, because particularly since the adoption of Igbo girls, a lot of information flying up from everywhere. And most of the time, those information are unconfirmed. Really don't know who to believe anymore. Abducted. The spokesman of the army, Major General, had claimed that most of the girls had been freed. It turned out that that was not the case. So it's very difficult to to buy into any of these claims coming from like was any of the authorities, either at the state level or at the federal level. So I don't believe that report is correct.
Okay.
I think we should defer to, yeah. This is Ben. I think we should defer to the information center that has been set up by the federal government. I think there's progress in what's going on. There's probably things that's happening that we really don't know. I mean, there's a lot of help that the Nigerian government is getting right now from the Israelis, the United States, and Britain. So there's obviously some movement, and so, um, but like Nosa and Dapo are saying, there's been a lot of miscommunication. I think the Borno State governor should let the information center that the federal government has set up handle all the communication with the press, so that there's not confusion in information that's been given out.
Thank you. I'm glad you brought that up, Ben. I know that you wrote a piece a week ago about this issue. I wanted to talk about another piece of information that we received this morning, and that is that Israel plans to come and help search for the girls as well. And I want to understand whether this might exacerbate or worsen religious tensions with Boko Haram if Israel does in fact come and help search for the girls.
Well, okay, this note, sir.
Okay.
Nigeria right now.
I mean, in theory, yeah.
Okay. Go ahead, Dapo. Dapo, go ahead.
Go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I was saying that Nigeria can use any help it can get from anywhere right now. And one thing ought to be made very clear, not just to Nigeria, but to the world at large. The Boko Haram group is not an Islamic group. It's a terrorist group, pure and simple. And their mode of operation, reflects the worst characteristics of any similar terrorist groups you can find anywhere in the world. So the idea that okay, the Israelis offering to help might probably create some kind of religious tension between Muslims and Christians. As far as I'm concerned, is a mute question. I think that if Israel can come and help us solve this problem right now, everybody in Nigeria will be happy. This is not a time for Muslims or Christians. There's one thing we need to understand, and I've been telling people this: the Boko Haram problem in Nigeria is not a President Jonathan's problem. It's not a federal government's problem. It's not a PDP problem. Neither is it a northern Nigeria problem or a southern Nigeria problem. It is Nigeria's problem. Therefore, it is everybody's problem. And because it's everybody's problem, I think this is the time Nigerians of all stripes, of all religious affiliation, should speak with one voice and take a common stand against the existential threat that Boko Haram is posing to Nigeria. So I really don't see the Israeli offering to help us as a serious issue.
Ben, did you have anything to add to that, or Dapo, did you have anything to add to that?
I do agree with Nosa that Nigeria needs any help it can get, but it also has to be handled very carefully. We don't want Nigeria to become another Iraq, so whatever help we are getting needs to be very well channeled and clear-cut in the intentions of whoever is coming in to help. The major problem that has allowed this issue to escalate is intelligence gathering. Obviously, Nigerian government has been lacking in that area. I mean, we have one of the best army in the world. I mean, Nigerian armies have helped in peacekeeping missions all over the world, but for some reason they haven't been able to put this insurgency down. So intelligence gathering has been the major issue. And so if the Israelis can help us in that area without inflaming religious tensions, we can use any help. And I'm speaking as an American and as a Nigerian. It's time for this issue to be put down. We have an elections coming up next year, and we just can't allow this to continue. So it just needs to be channeled very well through the federal government of Nigeria, and I don't see any problem getting help from anywhere in the world.
Thank you. Dapo, I'm not sure if you have anything to add to that, but I do want to ask you, you just mentioned a minute ago that you have a correspondent based out in Chibok right now. I wanted to find out how many, is it just one correspondent? How many people, how many journalists or reporters do you have on this story?
We have just one reporter, and then, in fact, that's part of the problem about this situation in terms of quality of information that is getting to most Nigerian people. Uh, and you'll be surprised that we are probably also one of the few uh, institutions here that really have kind of man on the ground. Um, I'm not too sure in terms of coverage of for instance, if many Nigerian newspapers or many Nigerian broadcast houses have been able to visit. This just underlies the very difficult nature of this coverage and the conditions that have created this difficulty in the first place. When this problem started,
I think we've lost Dapo.
Oh no, did we lose Dapo?
since then, the way that the military authorities here and the government first, I think there's a case of denial, and secondly, when this was really spinning uh, out of bounds, it then started to put in conditions like restriction on uh, telecommunication coverage and things like that. But besides all that, also is the fact Nigerian media itself is going through a difficult crisis, that you could call of revenue. Effectively enough man and material to do very serious, very effective coverage. So that's a problem in itself. And a lot of perhaps the very best coverage that's happened in the past few weeks, frankly, has come from international media. That's a major problem here.
That's interesting that you say a lot of the coverage has come from foreign. Did you say foreign journalists have been providing the best coverage? I want to just make sure I understood you correctly.
No, I said international, and by international, I also mean some of the they have Nigerian correspondents, but I mean they have the kinds of resources that will lead to effective coverage of things like these. But we have just only one person, and the insurgency, if you characterize it effectively, we're talking of about 3 states, of 3 to 5 states. Effectively, 3 states today, and we're talking also here of a landmass that's probably like almost the size of 3 or 4 states in the United States. So it's just humanly impossible. Then you have very difficult telecommunication processes. Yeah, in terms of materials, in terms of just logistic support for this kind of very professional coverage, it's difficult.
No, sir. How many journalists do you have covering it? How many reporters from the Tell are covering this story?
Oh no, we're just a couple of them, and like what I just said, Nigerian media companies don't have the kind of resources the international media operators have. So we are kind of stretched in terms of being able to do the kind of coverage that we ought to do, deploying the necessary number of people to be on ground. Because the other issue really is just that the Chibok phenomenon has been the front burner news and globally in the last 2 or 3 weeks. It's not really the issue. For me, it's not really how many people you have on the ground, because I mean the Boko Haram thing has been on for years, and that like I also mentioned, a lot. People have to understand the terrain we're talking about. It's a vast area, and logistically, it's not really easy to travel in that region of the country, particularly if you don't speak the local languages, because you stand out like a sore thumb. So it's a challenge for local journalists to go there with little or no logistical support to be able to do effective reporting of the insurgency in that part of the country.
Thank you. I wanna talk a little bit about how the international journalists are covering this story. My very first question is: have journalists kind of overtaken this remote area? Is it nothing but reporters as far as the eye can see? And I'll ask that question first to Nosa, and then if Dafa can fill in.
What did you say?
If the international journalists have overtaken the reportage.
No. The international journalists cannot cover Nigeria more than Nigerian journalists. Yes, I mean you have better exposure of CNN, for instance, because of its global reach, BBC, Sky News, and so on and so forth. The difference is that they have global reach, which Nigerian media don't have. Apart from that, really, you can't. A CNN journalist can understand the Boko Haram situation, but they have better access because they have, they have much more better resourced than the Nigerian journalists. And I think we also need to be careful here. We are very happy that the global media have suddenly focused attention on Nigeria, particularly on the Boko Haram problem. We need to understand that the Boko Haram problem has been on for years, and they've been killing. They've killed thousands of innocent Nigerians, bombing churches, mosques, bus stops, transportation hubs, and so on and so forth. But maybe this was the time that the problem in Nigeria needed global attention and focus. And of course, the Chibok thing happened. I think the only good side of this unfortunate incident is that suddenly it has focused the attention of the global community on the Nigerian problem, and they've come to realize that if Nigeria is not assisted to eliminate the Boko Haram menace, it could spread beyond our borders to other neighboring African countries, and this could spell danger for not just for this West African sub-region, but the whole of Central Africa. Possibly North Africa too.
Well, I think Nosa is quite right about this. One of the criticisms in Nigeria of the foreign media had been that for a very long time we're having this endless tragic situation in the Northeast. And I remember that somebody who puts the issue very that if you imagine that, say, an American kid had been, say, on a summer trip, on a field trip to Nigeria, and had been abducted, or perhaps a European, I mean, the level of just reported as offered to this situation. But, for a very long time, we really had a crazy, tragic situation. I mean, remember that about a month or so ago, 2 months ago, Boko Haram had actually slaughtered about 56 school kids. This was not even a case of abduction. They went to the school and the Nigerians, and this did not as much as outcry. But sometimes these things take time to gather. Musa put his hand on the problem. If Nigeria should boil over, it's not going to be a Nigerian problem. We're talking of about uh, 160 million people here, which is far more than half of the whole demography of West Africa itself. West Africa is just, I think, about 250 million people. So it's really going to be a regional tragedy of a very terrible proportion. So, in a sense, once international media had focused, eyeballed this problem, what they have tried to do is, I think, what they tend to do better to give to create the impact that is needed for global policy attention, and this is what we've been able to see them do this past few weeks.
Dapo, why do you think that there was no international media attention after the boys were the school children were murdered? Why do you think there's been such a difference in reaction from the international media?
Well, one, of course, is that um, Western media coverage of non-Western communities tend to be a little bit parochial. And two, it also tends to be driven more by economic considerations. I know that a good number of Western media organizations will be moved by, say, things like human rights and things like that. Um, but if something as little as this had happened, say, in the Niger Delta because of the oil and gas resources that affects, perhaps it will have elicited more coverage. I remember about a month ago when there was a little difficulty between we call it the LNG, which is the liquefied natural gas company that supplies most of, well, a good number of Western European countries, its gas uptake. They had some difficulty with some community. It didn't take 5 minutes. It was ringing on Reuters, AFP, everybody. It was as if the whole place was burning. Yet, and that's important. Let's not just minimize that too. But I think also, if you look at the nature of a number of foreign correspondents in Nigeria over the years, it's been tuning down. Perhaps this has something to do also with bottom line issues in newsroom management in those capitals. Increasingly, there's a big cutback in human men and resources of foreign media domiciled in Nigeria. So, if we now then have to depend on, most of these institutions sending reporters from their home countries, I guess it takes time for them to see the direct human connections between some of those issues in faraway places and how it affects the local communities in their own headquarter countries.
Then it seems what Dapo is saying is the coverage depends on one, proximity of journalists or journalists employed by international media, proximity to where the crisis takes place, and also socioeconomic reasons. The reasons the killings didn't get the coverage is due to socioeconomic reasons and the proximity of correspondence for foreign news organizations. Do you agree with that? Ben, are you still there? Ben, I think we're having technical difficulties. Hello? Oh, hello?